All right, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Life Radio. My name is Narayani Gaia, and I am the host of this podcast. Awaken Life Radio is a podcast about a spiritual being having a human experience in a world gone mad. And we talk about all things healing, intuitive cultivation, getting in the flow with life, and divine sacred service and finding our path to purpose in this life, which is why I invited today my good friend, Joda Williams. Hi, Joda.
Hi, Narayani.
Again, thank you so much for being here. We met, gosh, in Asheville about 4 years ago, I think, and we just always had this wonderful energy between us. And recently, I got a chance to get to know you deeper and start to learn about all of the powerful teachings, and not all of them, but about the teachings that you share, that you're launching this year, all about conscious biology, why it matters to you, how you've worked with different kinds of healing devices for decades, and a lot of the personal things that you've been through. And it's just the more I get to know you, the more curious I am, and the more I want to see what you have to share. Touch the world. And I'm going to just take a quick moment for those who don't know Joda. Joda's holistic offerings combine botanical therapies, energy realignment, and intuitive guidance to foster complete well being. Yes, each service is tailored to harmonize mind, body, and spirit, empowering your path towards vibrant health and inner balance. Conscious biology, Joda Williams invites a deeper understanding of the body as an intelligent, responsive system, one that communicates through sensation, imbalance, and energy. Excuse me, through botanical therapies, energy realignment, and intuitive guidance, her work supports return to internal harmony by addressing root patterns rather than surface symptoms. Hello. Each offering is designed to reconnect mind, body, and spirit, creating space for sustainable well being, clarity, and a more grounded relationship with your own biology. Boom. Great bio, Joda. Thank you. So, we're going to just jump right in. What is conscious biology?
Well, conscious biology, as far as the title, is a compilation of many of the things that you've mentioned over the years, having the opportunity to work in my first healing arts licensure, which was massage therapy, that took me into something that we talked about earlier, the somatic experience, and which is
Mm-hmm.
a part of conscious biology, the soma, where our body holds information, is conscious. I think those that do that work probably have a sense of that's what's happening, but when you add it with other knowledge that's out there now, it takes it to a whole new explanation of why and what is it that it's holding, instead of just doing a therapy and releasing and having the client feel better. What we do with conscious biology is bring into awareness the beauty of the patterning of what the mind, spirit is doing in that moment.
Mm-hmm. In that moment is such a wonderful additive. Um, I have a question for you. Another question. So thank you for naming that, first of all, and thank you for naming that. Many of our friends and family and clients and community who are listening and will listen in get a sense of what conscious is, right? So
Mhm.
if it's like biology is conscious, okay, I have one question there actually before I move on. So are you saying that by nature, the living biology of a human system, or of the complex of our human spiritual design, is conscious, or that we're bringing awareness? Because the way that I think about consciousness, and I'm going to geek out with you on this a little bit first, because I'm writing a book, and and my book is called The Awakening Map. So it's all about awakening, and I've had to kind of sit with how to say what I want to say when it comes to awareness and awakening and consciousness, and what people we know in the spiritual communities we know, like everything's consciousness, everything's conscious, like what does that really mean? So just to break that down a little bit more, when you say conscious biology, are you saying it becomes conscious as a result, and this is me projecting, okay, this is
Okay.
what I would say, that it becomes conscious as a result of our awareness of it, or that it's already conscious, it just, we are conscious beings, we are that without awareness?
It's kind of both.
Okay, tell me.
Because you can't experience it unless you're aware of it, even though it's there, it's been patterned, it's been
Mm,
um, we're created that way. It's a part of this unique dynamic of who we are. Now, a lot of my work that I truly am passionate about and have
mhm,
been playing with for, gosh, 15, 20 years
mhm.
is what's known as German New Medicine. Um, I found that understanding and that intrinsic, unbelievable science can be very complicated to follow. And you kind of get, I try and explain it to people, and they kind of get that deer in the headlight because it's just so complicated. But the beauty of, if you take it down to the simplest level and trying to answer your question here, is
Mhm.
as we evolve, it's there. Our conscious biology is developed from the minute the spark hits the womb through what Dr. Hammer called the
Okay.
germ layers.
Okay.
So
Okay, cool.
the
Let me pause you right there before we go into what that is, 'cause I want to get into that. So what I hear you saying is that we are conscious, whether we're aware of it or not, biology is conscious, right? We're made of 70 trillion cells. I've heard lately that number. So do you agree with that? Are we 70 trillion cells physically?
oh, don't ask me that. We're a
Okay,
lot.
don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. We're a whole ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
As individual beings, um, and, and and we're ecosystems obviously collectively. So we're starting with the premise that whether you're aware of it or not, there is consciousness within our biology. Okay, so if you guys are listening live, thank you so much. Hello, hello, friends. What does consciousness mean to you? I'd love to conscious mean to you being conscious. I'd love to hear in the chat if you want to jump in. And also as we go, if you have questions for Joda, you have anything that you want us to talk about, just post it and we'll move to get to it in a little bit as we're on live or in the replay. We'll respond for sure. Okay, thank you. So, okay, so first premise, like everything is conscious as a living, everything that's living is conscious. Yes? Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay, cool. And so the work of the layers, please continue. The German New Medicine teaches us that there are layers that need to that affect our health and well-being. Yes?
Um, there are layers of the evolutionary process within the womb that
Yes.
develop as the fetus develops, and
Yes.
it's all about survival. If we're gonna make it here on the planet, these mechanisms have to be in place to be able to make us aware of what is
Mhm.
being presented in our environment. So, from the first layer, which each one of these germ layers, the first is identified as the endoderm, and that is where we just have, can I survive here? And you could, from a bigger perspective,
Mm.
look at the when they maturate and they take off, is the environment conducive enough for it to continue to evolve? And so each one of these patterns happen in the womb, but then they repeat after birth over and
Mhm.
over again. So if you can
Mhm.
think of a child or a human, no matter what stage they're in, we can see where that question, can I survive here? Not everyone is
Right.
having to ask that question of themselves, but many are. And it may, create, even in the womb, if something is experienced, or when we're out of the womb, a pretty big deficit in how we then perceive the world if
Got
that
it.
gets triggered and not answered.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that basically sympathetic nervous system? Like, is that tied in with the sympathetic nervous system and being in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Like, if
Yes.
we're not in parasympathetic, then we're absolutely like, is it safe all the time?
Yeah.
Always looking
Yep.
for, okay, ways to connect and feel safe. And
Yep.
okay,
And
okay,
that's what we call conflict active. Exactly that. And
okay,
if there aren't ongoing triggers, which can be associated to, depending on how severe that first experience was, that usually has to be registered as completely caught off guard, and there was no solution, and you were in isolation, that's when the finite part of the psyche says, uh-oh, we're in trouble. And this can absolutely be confirmed with CAT scans. Dr. Hammer did
mm,
33,000 case histories using CAT scans before he came public with his findings,
wow.
who is the developer of German New Medicine.
Now, are we still in the first layer?
Yep, we're still just in the first layer. So we'll
Mhm.
just quickly, this is, we're just the iceberg, tip
I
of the
know.
iceberg.
Just
So
we just have an hour for a recording, and it's wonder every like centimeter of ice that you're gonna share about is wisdom on the mountain or something like that. Anyway, please keep going, keep going. It's
yeah,
valuable. It's valuable. Yeah.
yeah. So then the second, and just to go back for a second, so each one of these germ
Hmm.
layers is associated to different aspects of the brain, the
Hmm.
cerebellum, the brainstem, which then govern every tissue in our body.
Hmm.
So when that adaptation happens, when the body feels that it's in survival, or the psyche feels that it's in survival, it immediately turns into a biological program. And that's that where the conscious biology comes into play. It's an adaptation that
Hmm.
the body holds on to, the biology holds on to, until said time that the psyche can say, okay, we're safe. And then we go into the healing. And then there's different things that happen there. But that's where the symptoms show up, because the biology no longer has to hold that adaptation part, or in phase. It can
Right.
release it. It's just energetic. It's
It's
just
just
an
energetic.
energetic release.
It needs to
Yeah.
go and it needs to go somewhere. It's like it's been locked in, and there needs to be like in there's an expansion as a result of an unlocking of that pattern, and then that's when the healing begins.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
And of course, we're taught to fear our symptoms. It's
Oh yeah.
something wrong. But what if it's not? What if it's an
Hmm.
absolutely well designed divine plan that we have totally overlooked? And,
Hmm.
we've been very conditioned in our world where our bodies are concerned, and we're
So
what we
much.
call medicine.
Right.
So
Right, which
if
is
we,
why I wanted to open that up. Sorry, please keep going. Yeah, what is the way that we think about medicine? We're going through a whole reframing as whatever people think of RFK, RFK, it's a complete reframing of the collective awareness of how we think about medicine and healing. And it's when you said that, I got an image of like right before you realize that it's a blessing and an opportunity, I just see people like holding their breath until they get to the doctor. It's like I don't have any power to like look at this, feel this, understand it, decode it. Just but when somebody tells me what's wrong with my symptom and what's wrong with me, which is actually not even always the right question, in my experience.
exactly.
Then I can exhale, and then once I know I'm going to be okay, then I'll know I'm going to be okay. Which is actually I have doctors telling me that even that is a lie. That nobody could save your life because you have first of all you have a divine plan. then the responsibility for a doctor to save everyone's life all day long takes away from the personal responsibility. So I've been really thinking about that a lot lately. So
And
I
the
love,
sovereignty.
and the
Yeah.
sovereignty that we actually do have, that we just started reaching the minds of the mass larger populations, right? Okay,
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah.
So the theme, can I survive here? Second
Mhm.
layer is what we call the old mesoderm, and that is, am I under attack? So again, any time in life and that you are in a situation where you feel attacked, and think of children being
And picked.
bullied in our society, in our jobs, in our families, very prevalent. Third layer is the new mesoderm, and that is how we value ourselves. Big one. I think everybody's
Mm,
got this one because that's how people sell things, right? You're not good enough if you don't have this, and you need this to make you better. So we get hit with
mm,
it from all kinds of marketing platforms, let alone, again, our families or how we perceive things. It's all about our perception. And there's that other side of conscious biology. Once
mhm,
we get our nervous systems regulated, which right now is, with everything that's going on, it's just ongoing. Once our
mm,
systems start to regulate, we perceive things differently. So, what came at us that we looked at is, I have no value, I'm not this, I'm not that, starts to shift. And we have a better dialogue to have with ourselves once the nervous system becomes regulated. And part of it's taking the fear away of, my body's speaking to me on a level that I've not learned the languaging of yet. And this is an opportunity then to start scratching that surface of what ifs. And then the last
mm,
germ layer is separation. And
mm,
that is, again, just like give you an example, if somebody's running a separation program, they're more than likely to have skin issues. Um,
mhm.
because that's where we touch, that's where,
Boundaries with the
we
world.
contact that as well.
Immune issues as well. Immunity issues. Immune
Yep,
system
yep,
problems. Yeah. That was me
yeah.
as a kid. Yeah.
And the immune system is an interesting dynamic of how we position it as far as what it does for us.
Mm.
There's aspects of looking at the immune system as not quite described the way medicine describes it.
Do
Our
tell.
microbiome is more apt to be there for us than this thing called the immune system.
Right,
The,
right, right. I remember being in when I did my doula training with Wapio in like 20 years ago. I was in her first training, and it's kind of like it was a holistic birth training, support training. And she taught us about, the value of home birth being closer to your native, like biological environment versus being the hospital where everything is stripped and all the chemicals are stripped and all the bugs are stripped. And what we understand now is that plus all the antibiotics and all the pharmaceuticals have actually created the problem. And Monsanto and the monocropping and then all that lack of biodiversity actually makes us weaker, and that we need the actual natural diversity in order to be stronger, right?
yep,
So when someone gets a fever, like, great, your body's working.
mhm,
Yeah.
yep,
Just that switch alone, it's surprising how I'm just in such a bubble sometimes, being in wellness community for a long time, like how people don't understand that. Like, let's nurture that. Let's not give you ice cream just because you have a fever. Let's like give your body the nourishment. Anyway, so
yeah,
yes, so that last one that could present as skin issues and immune issues, and is about separation. I am separate. I am not part of a biological, complex, diverse system. There's me over here and I'm suffering, and then there's probably jealousy. What else comes up? in that fourth layer? What else are the kind of relationship dynamics that affect people's lives?
Yeah, so separation, obviously abandonment. There's that, and there's an interesting dynamic when you
Mhm.
take a child to their first experience, whether it's preschool or school. How many times will parents, comment that the child picked up something from school because now he's got a runny nose?
Right.
And that is, again, an opportunity to look at the body's response through
Mhm.
this larger conscious lens of anytime there's anything going on with the nose, that's what we call a stink conflict. So I
Mm.
conditioned my grandson Bodhi, who's now 7,
Yay,
from the time
Bodhi.
he was very young. And attending a couple days a week, I'd pick him up and I'd see a little runny nose, and we'd talk about it. What happened today that you didn't like? Because that's the stink.
Mm.
It's not
Mm.
necessarily the smelling, it's something that didn't go right. So here they are in this new
Mm.
environment, these new kids, these new teachers, this new environment, and they're trying to make sense of it all. And anything that irritates their sense of comfort or stability becomes a stink conflict.
I
So
see.
you're just seeing your child heal from adapting. There it is again, that adapting to that new environment. Because
Mm.
germs are way overrated, way over.
I
They're
also I'm reminded of I want to talk about germs, and I want to just name one thing that it reminds me of also, which I experienced. And whenever I talk about spirituality and healing in any way, like poop and sex always come up somehow. So I have something. So I've experienced this when I was way more sexually active. Um, and I've seen this in people often when they have a new lover or new relationship that they might get sick. I experienced that with my partner. I got very sick after we were first together. And I've always felt like that was the body because you share fluids, at least even kissing somebody, you share fluids,
mhm.
even if it's not sex. And so that's the body adapting to this whole other ecosystem. Yes. Would you see that as that? It
It's
depends.
not quite that black and white
It
because
depends.
there's a lot of things that can be going on there.
Sure.
You depending on how you
How
perceive
you
your
feel.
world,
Right.
that new relationship could trigger any one of those four aspects. Can I thrive here? Am I under attack? And most likely it's probably that third or fourth. If there's been a sense of being alone and you involve yourself in a new relationship, then
Mm.
that sense of um, value comes into play. And
Sense of
then the
self of value. Right.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
especially if there's lavish, loving um, exchange with that new partner, and then
And
of course
mhm,
this,
mhm.
the healing of the separation, being alone, would be the last one. So it depends. So just off the hip, figure out what um, your particular response was in that situation. Could be a difference
Yeah.
of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
few
That's
things.
that's good to think about. And then if somebody is not tracking any of those, do you have a way when you work with people to like look? I can see you much better with these on. You have a way to decipher that even if it's unconscious, like through muscle testing, through some of the technologies that you have to figure out what layer it is, even if they're not aware of what the story may be. Okay, great. That's so cool. Yeah, that's the best. So that's how I do remote healing too, because I do birth clearing. I think I shared that
Mm,
with you before, and it was something I trained to do remote healing. I ends up just kind of specializing more in that, like in the womb healing, pre-verbal, pre-birth, and the stuff that comes up is just amazing. It's not something they're aware of, but then after we could start to track it in the story, and it creates a whole
amazing.
story. Yeah, yeah, that they can consciously clear, and that we consciously clear in the sessions. Cool. So they're the four layers. So tell me about how you work with people. Now I'm curious about how you actually support people. If someone comes to you and they're like, I can't get over this shoulder thing. And by the way, I'm so tired of being alone, which is common. People feel very lonely these days. How do you work with people who come kind of giving you bits of information? How do you take this approach and support them in their healing journey?
Sure.
Hmm.
So I use technology to assess the body, biofield technology, and just listen to the body. What we think the body mind may need to be working on isn't necessarily what the psyche consciousness believes needs to be worked on. So that's the beauty of technology. You know, I call it the quantum lie detector test because you pose questions and the body responds through a feedback loop.
Mm,
And then we look at what the body is energetically available to work on because you don't
mm,
want to task the psyche body with too much. You need to just start taking down literally like the layers of the onion.
right.
So,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, I
and
experienced
then
that too.
every time, yeah, you
Hmm.
clear one of those layers, then that energy that the body's been spending on keeping the adaptation phase, the homeostasis intact, then comes back to the body. Well, then when you go down now to the next layer, the body's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I can handle this next layer. But all through that process, we'll find a theme, you know, something that comes up as steeped in one of those layers. You can also have, you know, multiple layers, and that's what we call being constellated. And through Dr. Hammer's work, he did a lot of mental health work, and he
Mm,
found that most mental illnesses are a product of being constellated. When you're running two programs on opposite hemispheres of the brain, it goes into this um, unrealistic way of perceiving life because it gets basically jumbled up.
right.
So,
And what would a belief be that might be in that jumble? Like an example of what someone will think when there's conflicting perspectives, just complete
so it
confusion.
needs to be, yeah, well, it could be any one of them. It could be, um, I can't thrive here. You're in a family dynamic where something has happened, maybe the loss of a parent, and that huge dynamic then shifts the whole perspective of you and your life and how you're going to
Mm,
move forward. And at the same time, there's a abandonment issue that starts running from that
I see.
and I learned this interestingly enough through the somatic work that I did as a massage therapist. Oftentimes when there's been an accident, and I'll just kind of share this story of this um,
Yeah.
man that came in. And when you're doing body work and you're trying to find what Upledger would call the energy cyst, where the body has constricted around an energetic aspect of something that's been experienced. So this young man had quite a bit of restriction on the outside of his right or left thigh. And when the therapist started working on it and moving that energy
Hmm.
and through intention and through the different types of um, training that's offered in this type of work, it not
Craniosacral.
only releases the pain, but
Mm,
what had happened is that he had been hit by a car on his bicycle as a young boy.
got
So
it.
he not only had injury there, but what you don't realize what came out, and it's often lots of movement and lots of expression, was how he felt as a child when that happened, and why did my parents let this happen to me?
Got it.
So underneath all that, all these years was that sense of not being cared for like he felt he should. So
Hmm.
these things are underlying. And when
Exactly.
you look at certain symptoms and the way a person presents in the world, you can start pulling those pieces apart and allow the truth to come out. So if you're running, any program on any one of those four together, then that would be an example of, a couple running together that would then create that inability to process life on a level
Yeah.
that you could prior to that happening.
Yeah. Is that are these related to, so do they all have mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects within them, or are they more related to the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual layers individually, or neither?
When you're
So let
referencing
me tell you
they.
stories. So for example, so I used to be a body worker as well. And I remember working on somebody and similar thing on their hip, and all of a sudden I'm flashing on a horse. And I was like, "Do you have a right horse?" They're like, "Oh my God, you're right on the area where I had the accident." I'm like, let's be with that, and we sit with it, and then there's a cry, and then I'm like tracking the story. Similarly, I don't remember that particular story at this time, but there was a story, and there was a beautiful physical healing. Then some space opened up in there. There was an emotional healing. They had a whole shift in perspective. So the way that I'm trained is to work through the body emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. And often it is, it's all of it, right? And we go to the depth of conscious spiritual energetics, the light of life and love itself as like the core divine healer. And then I train people now to like heal themselves through like that energetic expansion and presence, but I don't have all the scientific training that you have. I'm an intuitive healer, but it works however, it works.
Absolutely.
So sometimes like I had a friend I worked on did remote healing for her many years ago, and she couldn't get rid of a rash around her eye. Right. So automatically I'm like, well, what is she not seeing? But the way I was trained, we don't go in with an agenda. We go in with the higher self. We see what's there, you know. And I did some clearings for her, and there were some stories of what she didn't want to look at, and it was related to her ancestral line, and we did some clearing, and it cleared up. The rash went away. It was nothing that she could do physically was working. The creams weren't working, the doctor weren't working, the diet wasn't working, nothing was working. We did a clearing, and then the rash went. I mean, that's a miracle to me. I don't even know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can try. And if I get the hit, I'm like, I think I might be able to help you. I just get that feeling, and I follow that. So for me it was a spiritual, like the way I saw it was a spiritual healing, but it worked through the physiology, and it worked, it was energy, and it wasn't emotional, and it was psychological, and often it's all of them. So when I asked you about those different layers, I'm curious if sometimes also you find like, oh, it's an emotional issue. Very rarely is it just a physical thing. That's just a physical problem. That is no story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which does happen.
Yeah.
You can't look at the body strictly through the lens of um, the conscious biology piece being related to spiritual, emotional, because we do have this vehicle, this embodiment of this physical aspect that needs things as well. And if you
Exactly.
don't
Oh,
give it to them,
definitely.
you
Physical,
don't
mental,
nourish
emotional,
it.
spiritual.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you don't nourish it properly, then it's going to give you some symptoms. But
Of course.
again, it's conscious. It's your body telling you, I need this. And I'm not receiving it. So again, listen to the body. But
Hmm.
immediately we think something's wrong when
Right.
it's just we haven't learned how to have that level of communication. And then, of course, the other one would be when we've exposed ourselves to an environment that's taxing. That would
Hmm.
be where the toxins and the toxic exposures come in. Again, conscious biology representing its need for attention. This needs to be dealt with. So, and then the
Absolutely.
other thing is movement. So the body needs to move. So if you're nourishing, you're careful of your exposures of toxicity, you're moving and you're dealing with these emotional pieces. That's, yeah, medicine is needed where there's accidents, but that's that's about it. The influence that we've had where is the word cancer. I mean, what is the impact when somebody says, I just got diagnosed with cancer?
Mm,
There's a morphic resonance in that word now that is just, it's global,
yeah,
and especially here in the United States. So, and interestingly enough, if you are given a diagnosis of cancer, that creates a secondary trauma. So you get
totally.
the first trauma from whatever the program is that you're running that started to express itself in symptoms. You're in fear. You go to the doctor. They love diagnosing cancer, and bam, you're told you have cancer. So, what's the first thing most people think when they're given that diagnosis?
How can they think, do I need radiation or not? They don't think what might have caused it and what's the story and let me listen to my body and get to the root
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
And if I don't
Everyone
do
has cancer, it's not my fault. Yeah.
yeah, if I don't do radiation, will I die? That's the big impact that comes from getting that diagnosis. So
And
in
now I'm going to jump in again because I know you could just keep talking, but I have thoughts and they pop in like fireworks. So I apologize, but I'm going to jump in.
good.
Now they're diagnosing zero stage cancer. Do you know about that? They're diagnosing zero stage breast cancer. I have a friend who's getting treated for zero stage, which means they're doing radiation after taking out a precancerous little thing behind her nipple. So they diagnose zero stage cancer and then they're doing radiation preventative. They do it as preventative.
Yeah, it
It
of course.
hurts. I know.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
I
know what I would do if it was me, but the chance of survival for zero stage cancer is very, 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 very high. Because the body. Let's talk about what happens with cancer. Tell me. Let's talk about how the body actually deals with cancer all the time, like the
yeah,
truth about cancer and cells. If you have that information, I haven't studied it so deeply, but I understand it more from the patterns that I've discovered in women's bodies as I've done somatic coaching over the last dozen years, where we go in and often the stories where there seems to be, with our spiritual energy, we look and we'll sense like a sticky energy, like sticky, and then dark. And for women, it's often the overgiving depletion, complete like what's despair story of like their mothers and grandmothers that have been like doing whatever it takes to take care of everyone because if they don't they're going to die, survive, and be isolated. Like my grandma, her husband died at 30 when she was 35 and she said I could never be with anyone because I was dirty. Or my other grandma who said I'm not worried about dying, I'm just worried about who's going to feed my husband. Where like
yeah.
complete
There it
sacrificing of
is.
your own needs because society has impacted you. That's like the constellation. It's like so much going on in there that is affected. But what's the truth? I mean, isn't don't we all have cancer? Like, isn't cancer something that the body can get rid of when it has the right environment?
Well, first of all, let's look at that diagnosis
Okay.
and see how much we can dismantle that very incredibly fear-based diagnosis. So
Right.
when any of those factors are challenged and we're not conscious of our body and this miraculous divine way it's been um, created, and we
Yes.
have a symptom, we
Mhm.
used to in the olden days, what would we do? Where would we go? Who took care of us in
Grandma?
the ancient days? No, even well, yeah, even some of the, you know, one or two generations back, but we're starting to into that medical model, 30,
Sorry. It's
20,
starting to
30
rain.
years.
It's starting to rain, so I had to close my window. Excuse me. Sorry. please. Sorry. Keep going.
So cancer has become a very promoted model in the medical field because they don't look at causative factors, they don't look at malnutrition, they don't look at toxicity, they don't look at this model of adaptation that the body goes to when it has been exposed to a traumatic experience,
Right.
and the release of that adaptation when the body has healed. So
Mm,
you put those factors together and we have a real clear cut way to say it's not what we thought it was at all. And if we look at it that way, that which is why this is so important to me. I did
mm,
a grief workshop about 4 years ago. I went through a divorce and
right.
felt like, I need to just make sure I'm processing this, and I stood around, we stood around the circle at the and I looked, and everybody that had shared their reason for being there for grief, 80% of it was because they lost a loved one to some kind of a diagnosis. And in that
Mm,
moment, I knew, because I'd been working with German New Medicine, this, because it's not only the person
yeah.
that has to deal with the diagnosis, it's their immediate family. And then once that person does cross, then the family is left with all of this terrible heartache. And I just thought, this is so unnecessary. This just doesn't have to happen because the model is broken. I'm going to say it, the Western medical model is broken. And I think, just to reference what you said
Mm,
earlier, for the fact that the pharmaceutical companies are being looked at and limited to such a great degree now, like never before, the truth's coming out.
truth is coming out. Yeah, and also our bodies don't lie, right? Like you eat well, you exercise, you stay hydrated, you get out of those toxic, relationships or abusive relationships, you're going to feel better. You're just going to feel better. You're going to feel better about yourself. It's almost like eventually I'm hoping, people just literally learn to listen to their bodies. I mean, I remember I haven't had a health insurance. I think I had it for like a year in the last 25 years because I was so immersed in natural healing, and I would just sit down at my altar and pray and cry, and I would get so much information that nobody was telling me. And then I would meet people like you and they'd be like, yeah, that seems accurate, or I get tests done, it would affirm. um and I was very sick as a child. I was very sick. I think I had Lyme. I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I was on antibiotics all the time. So when I got bit by a tick in 2023, you saw me go through that transformation. It was like, I'm not taking antibiotics. I've already got my gut biome like is great. My gut, I haven't taken it in 12 years. I don't even want to. My doctor, who's a functional medicine doctor, said, well, we're going to have to go through a protocol. It'll be 4 months. I was like, 4 months of not eating chips or whatever, and then I was like, okay. And it ended up being 9 months. And then we had to go through the layers. So it was getting a 1 month of mold, 1 month of parasites, things I didn't even know that were a problem. And then the last month, like the fifth or sixth months, we did the Lyme protocol because we had to go through all those layers. Um, and I'm so glad it completely shifted my whole metabolism. Now, if I have a piece of cake, it's like, all right, you'll be okay. I'll be okay in a day or two. It doesn't like break me out or have everything stop functioning. It's like although now I know how widespread Monsanto is, even in organic flour, by the way. I just saw a report that eat all the bread, y'all, at Whole Foods has genetic modified wheat in there, and the only ones they tested, there were two. One of them was Ezekiel bread, is free of glyphosate, by the way. It's kind of interesting for those people who eat bread. So anyway, back on topic. I kind of want to talk about like a little bit about resiliency and like when you work with people and your own self going through these different models of healing, and you come to a place where you feel like pretty strong and healthy. like you're okay, you're healthier. Are there certain things that you like? Maybe we could talk about water, the right kind of water, things that we can make sure that we have in our day-to-day lifestyle that will help build resiliency and, support diversity in the gut. So the gut brain connection is opening to thriving and possibility. Yeah. Certain things
Yeah.
that you kind of recommend for most people, even though if anyone is touched, absolutely reach out to Joda for private sessions because you're going to get the most from a private session, for sure, to know exactly what layer is up for you. But can you talk about
Um,
some of the adjustments that we can maybe all make that would support our
sure.
health?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hydration is critical. It's absolutely critical. Air and water, the top two.
Yeah.
When part of my training as a massage therapist is I became a colon hydrotherapist.
Oh,
So I
cool.
became very intricately involved with the hydraulics of the body
Yes, yes.
and what we call auto intoxication. So most of the diseases that we get diagnosed with are just an auto intoxication that is caused by not giving the body the proper amount of water, hydration to flush it. The connective tissue becomes stiff, then it crimps the lymphatic system. It can't move. But most importantly,
Mm,
when the brain, which is critical for it to be functioning, does not have enough hydration, and if you remember in anatomy class, the two little synapses between
sure.
the nerve endings, that little space in between where this message gets to this
Conducts.
message here conducted has to be hydrated.
Yep.
And if that's not there, then there's no functioning in the body. So if the brain
Hmm.
starts getting dehydrated, it goes and looks. And guess what organ it goes to, which carries the most liquid?
Kidneys,
Bowel.
bowels. Okay.
So we know what the bowel is. It's what we call the septic system. It's where all the dump goes and then is evacuated. So, in order for the body to send the hydration to the brain, it has to take it back up through the hepatic flexure, through the liver again, in order to clean it as best as possible so the brain has the level of hydration that it does. So,
Mm,
see how just one example of
mm.
not hydrating ourselves well enough, how it can cause problems in our system. And
That's
there's
interesting.
the first big toxic load that we get is we create it ourselves.
Well, when I went through that cleanse, it was very interesting to get that feedback from my naturopath and saying, like, we need to work on your cells to be able to absorb the nutrients because when they did my blood work, I had a lot of nutrients in my body because I eat a very healthy diet, but they weren't all absorbing. And she was able to track that through the study, which was really interesting, which I was able to track also to energetically receiving and
Mhm.
how I let people, becoming a strong, independent, Western white woman. I mean, it's not about race at all, but whatever. Um, that I become a fierce, independent person. Like always, my practice is like receiving more, letting in more, receiving, receiving. I also noticed one other thing I want to say about water, and then I want to hear what you recommend for hydration. If you have any water systems or if you sell water systems, because we need more people to have access to clean water and good water that's absorbable. Um, that there's a reason in the shower that you get a lot of insights, that we get these insights and breakthroughs in the shower. And I've been able to track that to the water element because spirit communicates through the elements and loves to communicate through water. And especially as women, we are more watery. We have more emotional energetics in our field, generally speaking. And so there's this whole piece where I know that I could like take a shower to get any fresh insights in any given moment because it will always bring me back to feeling like connected in my body. It's very sacred, and I really wish that we could start to pray with water more. It could be normalize praying with water and really understand Masaru Emoto's work and how we think directly affects the field of the water. Can you share about some ways that you make sure that you're getting clean water, or you suggest people have access to purified water? What kind of water is good? And if you guys have any questions, please do post them in the chat. Happy to have a few friends watching. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things that are marketed.
Hmm.
I can't always say I buy into all of them.
Well, good.
I don't have a special water system right now.
Okay.
I I try to drink out of clean bottles, spring
Um,
water, and then I do a lot of like electrolytes to charge the water. So it does make it, so we call it, makes the water wetter. Just a little.
Electrolytes. Hmm.
So it it they're like enzymes that is one of the factors of why the cell isn't opening up to allow. It has a lot to do with essential fatty acids and enzymes. So if you're eating a good enough diet, you find the things that are missing that would cause the cells to not, to be, the doors aren't opening. So why are the
Right.
doors not opening? Is there a key that needs to unlock the door? Um, and these different types of things in our diet and supplements that we can take can help to do that, to make things, like you
Okay.
said, more bioavailable.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking about acupuncture and acupressure and Chinese medicine and the value of like opening up meridians and the pathways and all the years of like I used to do a lot of colonics as well, like in the 90s, and I mean it's a little much, but I needed it. But how all the kinds of ways that I've learned about detoxing is like first you open those channels, which I think you're saying as well. It's like make sure the elimination. I have a friend who has a really bad SIBO and she can't exercise. Oh, maybe I'll introduce her to you. Actually, maybe she can work with you. And every time she does a lot of exercise, she gets really sick. I think also mold. So she's put on a lot of weight and she just can't. So she can only like barely break a sweat. But if she does too much, she gets really sick the next day every single time, which maybe is healthy. I don't know. It's maybe what she needs. Maybe she needs to take a day off and keep going. I don't know, but we were talking about that this week and like the power of opening the channels, and I was suggesting she do some sweating, like gentle sweating, like little
Mhm.
like infrared, a little bit at a time, because if those channels are open you can eliminate. And she's 3 months into her protocol and she still can't exercise. I'm like, 3 months, there's a lot you could do with the right protocol, right? Yeah.
No
I,
kidding.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so we're getting a little bit towards the end here. So what I heard you say about hydration is electrolytes are important. Get the water wet. I was hearing, I told you I joined Dr. Zach Bush's membership, which is really cool. That I'm enjoying Journey, and he was talking about hydration the other day, and ideally getting hydration through food. Like cucumbers have so much water, and our
Yep.
bodies have so much water, but it doesn't mean like if you get popped that all your water comes shooting out because it's contained. And so, same way, like water is contained in certain foods that are great ways to get hydrated as well. Any
Celery, cucumbers,
celery.
different blends. Don't
Mm,
juice them, blend them, and put in a
mm.
little green apple and some ginger.
Oh,
Yeah.
so much easier to clean up too. Thank you for that because I was drawn to celery, and I'm starting my spring cleanse this week. And
Mm.
yeah, and I put some celery in my salad today, and I was like, celery, because it's very watery. But and I have a juicer, and I just haven't felt like the work. You juice, and you have to clean, and you got all the bulb, and it just like takes a lot of time in the
Do you have
day.
a blender? Do it in the
I am going
blender.
to stop juicing and start
Oops.
blending.
Yeah.
Yes, and green apple, yum yum yums. Thank you. Hey, gosh, so we are coming up to time. If you guys are listening, share any final questions that you have for Joda. If it's in the future now, share them. And if she's not on there, we will get them the answers to you. Um, Final things that you want to share that you want people to know. I know it's so short. Um, just a
Is
little
there,
intro.
I have a small little ebook that I've put together
Yeah,
on what we talked about today. Is
perfect.
there a way to get that
Oh
to
yeah.
the listeners
We'll
that
get
may
it to
want
everyone. We'll
to?
absolutely post it in the comments. Just email me that link and we'll make that available within the next 24 hours. For now, it will be available in YouTube in the comments under the video. Not for now, but by the end of tomorrow, I'll get it up there, probably sooner. And then in the future now, we'll have that will be able to be linked on Spotify and Apple Music and iHeartRadio and all the places. So yes, so the free ebook has the information like basic foundations for
Yeah,
health.
it goes a little bit more in depth about what we talked about, but I think it'd be juicy for the listeners to just, put some of these concepts together and reference back. So it's
Thank
like
you so much.
10, 10 pages,
10 pages,
nothing.
easy, easy. And what's the best way for people if they want to follow up with you directly?
Um, is my website or email
Great.
available through the chat? Yeah.
Yeah. So your website, hpitribe.com.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Joda at hbitribe.com so people can email you directly or they can contact you through your website directly. Yeah? Okay.
probably the
Yep.
best way is just email, or that way it's, yeah,
Direct.
this way. Cool.
Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, friends, for tuning in now and in the future now. If you love this podcast, and we sure hope that you did, definitely subscribe and rate if you can. If it's on a platform that rates, we love 5 stars. And yeah, just continue to listen to your body and know that there are many, many people like Joda Williams that are available. And if you resonate with Joda, reach out to her and get the support that you need for your health because people like Joda are here to inspire you to learn how to be empowered with your own health so you don't have to go running to somebody every time you have a symptom, but you could start to track and understand what you need, what your body needs. Um, and I hope that that sums up real well, Joda, because I want you to I want people to know you're one of these best kept secrets and I want to support you and I'm so excited that
Well,
we're connected and doing cool stuff now. Thank you.
thank you for this opportunity, for sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. Thanks.